Picture this. You're scrolling through your banking app at 2 in the morning, staring at your checking account balance, and you can't shake this gnawing feeling that you should be doing something smarter with your money. Maybe you've got a few $100 sitting there, maybe a few thousand, and every financial guru on the internet is screaming at you to invest it somewhere. But here's the thing that nobody talks about. Most people are throwing their money at investments in completely the wrong order, like trying to build a skyscraper by starting with the penthouse and wondering why everything keeps collapsing. My name is Alex, and I've spent years watching people make the same devastating mistakes over and over again with their money. They'll dump everything into the latest hot stock while carrying credit card debt that's eating them alive at 24% interest. They'll chase cryptocurrency gains while having exactly $0 saved for emergencies. It's like watching someone try to fill up a swimming pool while the drain is wide open at the bottom. If you've ever wondered whether there's actually a right way to prioritize your investments, or if you're tired of feeling like you're shooting in the dark with your financial decisions, stick around because what I'm about to show you could literally save you decades of financial frustration. The strategy I'm going to walk through isn't sexy. It's not going to make you rich overnight, but it will put you on the fastest possible path to actual wealth instead of just the illusion of it. Here's something that's going to blow your mind. The average American has exactly $500 saved for emergencies. $500. That's less than most people spend on their monthly car payment, and it's actually gone down from last year. Meanwhile, these same people are asking me whether they should be buying individual stocks or jumping into cryptocurrency. It's like asking whether you should upgrade to premium gasoline when your car doesn't even have an engine. The truth is, there's a specific sequence for investing your money that can save you thousands of dollars in mistakes and put you years ahead of where you'd be otherwise. But most people completely ignore this order because it's not exciting enough. They want to skip straight to the part where they're picking winning stocks and bragging about their portfolio returns. They want to feel like Gordon Gekko when they should be focusing on building a foundation that won't crumble the first time life throws them a curveball. Think about it this way. You wouldn't start decorating your living room before you fix the massive hole in your roof, right? Yet that's exactly what most people do with their finances. They get excited about investing while their financial foundation is completely unstable. Every month they delay fixing their fundamentals is another month they're essentially lighting money on fire. Let me paint you a picture of what happens when you get this order wrong. Imagine you're putting $1,000 a month into your investment account, feeling pretty good about yourself because you're being responsible and thinking about the future. But you've also got $5,000 in credit card debt sitting there, quietly growing at 22% interest every single month. That debt is essentially eating your investment gains faster than you can make them. You might see your portfolio go up 8% in a year and feel like you're winning, while your debt is growing at nearly 3 times that rate. You're basically running on a treadmill that's moving backwards. Or here's another scenario that happens all the time. You finally decide to start investing seriously. You open up a brokerage account, transfer over your savings, and start buying stocks. Then 3 months later, your car breaks down and needs $2,000 in repairs. Guess what happens next? You have to sell those investments at whatever the market price happens to be that day, probably at a loss, because Murphy's Law dictates that your car will break down right when the market is having a bad week. Now you're back to square one, except you've also lost money on investments that you had to liquidate at the worst possible time. This is why the order matters so much. Every step in the sequence I'm about to show you is designed to protect the steps that come after it. It's like building a fortress, where each layer of defense makes the inner layers more secure. Skip a layer, and the whole thing becomes vulnerable to attack. The first step in the sequence is something that most people find incredibly boring, but it's also the most important thing you'll ever do for your financial future. You need to build an emergency fund before you invest a single dollar anywhere else. I know, it's not exciting. You're not going to impress anyone at parties by talking about your emergency fund. But here's why this matters more than you think. An emergency fund isn't really about the emergencies themselves. It's about creating a psychological safety net that prevents you from making terrible financial decisions when life inevitably goes sideways. When you have money set aside specifically for unexpected expenses, you don't have to panic when something goes wrong. You don't have to sell investments at terrible times. You don't have to rack up high interest debt to cover basic survival needs. The question everyone asks is how much you should save. The traditional advice is 3 to 6 months of living expenses, but that range is so broad it's basically useless. The amount you need depends on your specific situation. If you've got a stable government job with great benefits and multiple income streams, you might be fine with 3 months of expenses. If you're a freelancer in a volatile industry with no safety net, you might need closer to 6 months or even more. Here's what I recommend for most people starting out. Forget about the big scary number for now. Start by saving your first $1,000 as fast as humanly possible. This covers most minor emergencies and gives you that crucial psychological buffer. Then work toward 1 month of living expenses. Once you hit that milestone, keep building until you reach 3 months of expenses. Breaking it down this way makes what feels like an impossible goal much more manageable. But here's something fascinating that most people don't realize. Recent research found that people with at least $2,000 in emergency savings had financial well-being scores that were 21% higher than those without any emergency fund. That was the largest boost linked to any single financial factor they measured. $2,000 isn't life-changing money, but the psychological impact of having that buffer is enormous. Once you've got your emergency fund locked and loaded, the next step is absolutely critical, and it's where most people completely lose their minds. You need to eliminate all high-interest debt before you invest anything else. When I say high-interest debt, I'm talking about anything charging you more than about 8% annually, though this threshold can shift depending on market conditions. Credit card debt is the obvious villain here. With average interest rates hovering around 22%, credit card debt is like having a financial vampire attached to your neck, slowly draining your life force. Carrying credit card debt while trying to invest is like trying to run a marathon while someone keeps throwing obstacles in your path. You might eventually finish, but you're making it way harder than it needs to be. Here's the math that should terrify you. If you have $5,000 in credit card debt at 22% interest and you only make minimum payments, you'll end up paying nearly $3,000 in interest over 5 years. That's money that could have been working for you instead of against you. Every dollar you use to pay down that debt is essentially earning you a guaranteed 22% return, which is better than what most professional investors achieve over their entire careers. The strategy for eliminating debt efficiently is straightforward but requires discipline. List all your debts with their interest rates and minimum payments. Pay the minimums on everything, then throw every extra dollar you can find at the debt with the highest interest rate. This approach, called the debt avalanche method, saves you the most money mathematically. Now here's where things get really interesting, and this is the part that makes most people's heads explode because it seems to contradict everything I just told you about paying off debt first. There's actually one major exception to this rule, and it's so powerful that it becomes step 3 in our sequence even before you finish eliminating all your debt. If your employer offers matching contributions to your retirement plan, you need to contribute just enough to get the full match before you do anything else. This might sound completely backwards after everything I just said about debt, but hear me out, because the math here is absolutely mind-blowing. Employer matching is essentially free money. Not kind of free money, not mostly free money, but literally free money that your employer will hand you just for participating in their retirement plan. Most employers will match 50 cents on every dollar you contribute up to a certain percentage of your salary. Some generous employers will even match dollar for dollar up to a specific limit. Let me break this down with real numbers so you can see why this trumps even high interest debt. Let's say you make $50,000 a year and your employer matches 50% of your contributions up to 6% of your salary. If you contribute $3,000 annually, your employer will throw in another $1,500 just for showing up. That's an immediate 50% return on your investment, guaranteed, no matter what happens in the stock market. Even if you're carrying credit card debt at 24% interest, getting a 50% immediate return usually makes mathematical sense. It's like finding money lying on the sidewalk that your employer promises to double if you pick it up. You'd be crazy not to grab it, even if you owe money to other people. The key here is precision. You want to contribute exactly enough to get the full employer match, then immediately redirect every other available dollar back to attacking your high interest debt. Don't get greedy and start contributing more than the match until you've eliminated those credit cards. The employer match is the exception to the rule, not a reason to abandon the rule entirely. There's one important caveat you need to understand about employer matching though. Some companies have what's called a vesting schedule, which determines how long you need to stay with the company to actually keep the matching funds they contribute. If you're planning to job hop in the near future, make sure you understand these rules. However, even with vesting requirements, the immediate return from employer matching usually makes it worthwhile. Once you've secured your employer match and eliminated all your high interest debt, congratulations. You've now built what I call the foundation layer of your financial house. You've got an emergency fund protecting you from unexpected expenses, you've eliminated the debt that was bleeding you dry, and you've captured all the free money your employer was willing to give you. This foundation creates the bedrock that everything else gets built on top of. Now we move into what I call the tax optimization zone, and this is where things get really exciting because most people completely mess this up. They get distracted by shiny objects and skip right to regular investment accounts when they should be maximizing every tax advantage option available to them first. The next step is maxing out your individual retirement account, and here's why this comes before putting additional money into your employer's 401k plan. Your IRA gives you complete control over your investment choices and typically comes with much lower fees than most employer plans. Corporate retirement plans are notorious for offering limited menus of expensive mutual funds with management fees that can eat into your returns like termites in a wooden house. With an IRA, you can invest in low-cost index funds that charge fees of just a few hundredths of a percent instead of the 1 to 2% fees that are common in many workplace plans. That might not sound like much, but over decades, those fee differences can cost you tens of thousands of dollars. For this year, you can contribute up to $7,000 to an IRA, or $8,000 if you're 50 or older. The extra contribution for older folks is like a participation trophy for surviving long enough to realize you should have started saving earlier, except this trophy actually helps you retire comfortably. Here's where the decision gets more complex, and it's something that keeps financial advisors employed and ordinary people confused. You need to choose between traditional and Roth versions of these accounts, and the choice can literally save or cost you thousands in taxes over your lifetime. The decision boils down to a simple question with a complicated answer. Do you want to pay taxes now or later? Traditional accounts let you deduct contributions from your current taxable income, but you pay taxes when you withdraw the money in retirement. Roth accounts make you pay taxes up front, but then all your withdrawals in retirement are completely tax-free. Here's the general rule that works for most people. If you're currently in a high tax bracket and expect to be in a lower one in retirement, choose traditional accounts to get the tax deduction now. If you're in a lower tax bracket now but expect to be in a higher one later, choose Roth accounts to pay the lower tax rate today. The problem is that predicting future tax rates is about as reliable as predicting what you'll want for lunch 3 months from now. Young people starting their careers should probably lean toward Roth accounts because they're likely in their lowest earning years, and tax rates will probably only go up from here. High earners who are hitting their peak income years might benefit more from traditional accounts to reduce their current tax burden. If you happen to have access to a health savings account, this is where things get absolutely incredible because HSAs might be the most underutilized investment vehicle in America. They're like the Swiss Army knife of tax-advantaged accounts, offering not one, not two, but 3 different tax benefits that make them absolutely magical for the right people. You get a tax deduction for contributions just like a traditional IRA. Your money grows tax-free while invested, just like any retirement account. And here's the kicker that makes HSAs special. Withdrawals for qualified medical expenses are completely tax-free, even in retirement. It's the only account that gives you tax benefits on the way in, while the money grows, and on the way out. The catch is that you need to have a high deductible health plan to be eligible, which isn't right for everyone. But if you're young, healthy, and don't have significant medical expenses, an HSA can be one of the most powerful retirement accounts available. Here's the strategy that makes HSAs incredibly powerful. Pay for your current medical expenses out of pocket if you can afford to, and let your HSA money stay invested in the market. Keep all your medical receipts because there's no time limit on when you can reimburse yourself for qualified expenses. You could pay for a doctor visit today, keep the receipt, and reimburse yourself from your HSA 20 years from now, completely tax-free. After age 65, HSAs become even more flexible. You can withdraw money for any purpose, though you'll pay income tax on non-medical withdrawals just like a traditional IRA. But medical expenses in retirement are essentially guaranteed, so having a pile of tax-free money specifically for healthcare costs is like having a secret weapon against one of retirement's biggest financial risks. Once you've maximized your HSA contributions, you go back and max out your 401k contributions beyond the employer match. At this point, you're really cooking with gas from a tax perspective. Between your IRA, HSA, and workplace plan, you could potentially shelter over $30,000 annually from current taxation. Here's something that might surprise you about this whole process. Most people never get past this point. The average American saves about 6% of their income, which usually isn't enough to max out even their employer match and IRA contributions, let alone everything else. But if you're one of those people who can actually work through this entire sequence, congratulations. You're already in the top 5% of savers in America. The beautiful thing about following this optimal order is that each step builds on the previous ones. creating a financial foundation that gets stronger over time. Your emergency fund prevents you from derailing your progress when life happens. Eliminating high interest debt stops you from bleeding money on interest payments. Maximizing employer matching gives you guaranteed returns. Tax advantage accounts let more of your money compound without the government taking its cut every year. Once you've worked through all these tax advantage options, you finally get to the step that most people want to start with: regular taxable investment accounts. These are the wild west of investing, where you can buy individual stocks, trade options, or speculate on whatever the internet is obsessing over this week. By the time you reach this point, you've built such a solid foundation that these investments become the cherry on top instead of a desperate attempt to get rich quick. This sequence isn't sexy. You won't get rich overnight following this plan, nor will you have crazy stories to tell about making a killing on some random stock tip. What you will have is something far more valuable: a financial system that works, protects you, and steadily builds real wealth over time instead of just gambling with money you can't afford to lose. So there you have it: emergency fund, high interest debt, employer match, max out your IRA, crush that HSA if you have one, max out your workplace plan, then move to taxable accounts. Your future self will thank you for every smart decision you make today. Drop a comment below and tell me which strategy you're going to implement first. And yes, do subscribe only and only if this video helped you.